I like the Mad Max movies. This is my father, and from what I understand, he also likes the Mad Max movies. Would you like to speak on that?
I love the Mad Max movies.
Mayday, mayday, we're going down.
I have been a fan of the series for a long, long time, since I was a teenager back in the 1980s, when the movies were still coming out.
Yeah, which ones did you get the chance to see in theaters? Because I've only had the chance to do Fury Road, because, that's like, I was really only cognizant when that one came out. The rest of them were either made before I was born. When was Thunderdome made? Do you remember?
Thunderdome was, I think, 85 is a guess, and Fury Road is the only Mad Max movie I have ever had the opportunity to watch in a theater also.
Oh, man, we're tied.
I'm sad to say, yeah.
Damn, that sucks. Well, yeah, I just took a peek, and yeah, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is 1985. So, yeah, I obviously did not get the chance to see that one.
Yeah, I would have been about 14 around the time that one came out. Now, that was the only one I really had access to as a kid. Kind of came out of a conservative and fairly religious family, so sneaking R-rated movies was not easy. Since Thunderdome was PG-13, though, that was an easy get past for me. So that was actually one of the movies. The movie I would guess I probably watched the fourth most at the time, after like Jaws and a couple others.
Yeah, because Jaws is a fucking PG film. Of course it is.
I could get away with watching that one a lot too, yes, because it was PG.
Naturally. So, yes. So there are 4 Mad Max films at the moment. There's the 5th one at the time of filming, the Furiosa, which isn't like... I guess it's not officially a Mad Max movie because Mad Max himself isn't in it, but it's within the shared cinematic universe. I myself I'm at least excited to go see it because, George Miller just hasn't yet let me down with any of the movies that I've seen that he's done. Obviously the Mad Max movies, and I've also seen Witches of Eastwick, which was pretty enjoyable. I didn't know that movie even existed until about a year ago.
Right.
And yeah,
Till I sprung it on him.
Yeah, and it was a good idea that you did. So yeah, no, I'm curious about seeing Furiosa myself. I don't have like super high hopes for it, but I try not to walk into anything with too high hopes because I just don't want to get let down if it doesn't work out to be the kind of thing that I want to watch. So what about you? How do you feel walking into the new one?
Ew, boy, I'm a little skeptical. I don't know. From the looks of it, I'm just a little skeptical. I don't really feel like we need Furiosa's backstory. I feel like we got just the perfect amount of her backstory in Fury Road. It looks awfully clean and composited, and I mean, granted, Fury Road sort of had that look too, but this one almost looks like television to me.
It definitely looks, from the trailers that I've seen, a lot sleeker. I can agree with that. Now, I think that, maybe that could be written off in that, this takes place earlier in the apocalypse, so, not as many things had gone to complete shit, at least, physically speaking, the items, the cars. So I think that might be excusable, but of course I have to watch the movie before I can really make that call.
As you did say earlier, George Miller has yet to let me down. So at least in the movies of his I've seen. I have never watched Babe. I've never watched
Neither have I.
Happy Feet.
I have also never seen Happy Feet. But then again, those aren't my kind of films, so...
Exactly.
Yeah, it is whatever. So
I would imagine they are probably fairly good for being kids' movies. I was just old enough I wasn't interested in seeing them by the time they came out.
So, okay, we've discussed this one before, this general concept, but I think it still does hold up that, the first movie is society starting to fail. The second movie is, after the absolute failure.
Effects of society having failed.
Exactly, right? And the third one is everybody trying to kind of bootstrap themselves into a new society, trying to build things up from the ground up again. And then the fourth one is in creating the better place, or at least better than what they had for the last 10, 15 years, however long it is. Out of the 4 films that we have, which one is your favorite? Which one do you find yourself rewatching the most? Which one would you rank the highest? Just in general.
That is just about an impossible question for me. I can say that the original, the first film, Mad Max, is my least favorite of the 4. I do think Road Warrior is probably my favorite overall, followed very closely by Fury Road, but then that would be followed very, very closely by Thunderdome. I do think Thunderdome is the inferior film of the 3, but I do think a lot of my nostalgia carries over in the case of that film. And while I do prefer Road Warrior and Fury Road a little more from like a critical point of view, I just have an awful lot of love for Thunderdome. Mm-hmm. And I do actually like that we're seeing a slightly different side of the apocalypse in that one.
I gotta say, I really can't disagree with your, rankings on those two very much. The only thing that I would have to say, I like Fury Road more than I like the Road Warrior. But, I think that's just a product of modern pacing, really. Because I think that pacing is a really important thing for any art that has a temporal aspect, movies, fucking music, things along those lines. The pacing of it is extremely important. You don't ever want to get somebody too bored, but you also don't want to go too fast that people will miss shit. And in my opinion, Fury Road has the best pacing. It is an action movie with some of the best pacing out there, period. There are very few action movies that can match that pacing and level of narrative storytelling all at once. It's a difficult feat to do, and it clearly fucking paid off. George Miller spent 20 years working on Fury Road, 15 years working on Fury Road? It was a long time he worked on this movie.
Yeah, long time. And I would say, I guess, as far as just getting to the point and balls to the wall action, Fury Road is probably the superior film in that regard.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Just think of some of some of the scenes in that movie are just fucking nuts. The Furiosa and Max fight is absolutely amazing.
That is amazing.
Yes, it is. The fucking Nux at the very end when he's sacking himself. My God.
Witness me.
Oh, God, I know. I love it. It's so good. It's the best shit in the world.
Oh, I can almost cry.
Exactly. Right. The fucking when Max has to save Furiosa with the blood transfusion that was set up at the beginning of the fucking movie in the first 5 minutes. Are you kidding? I didn't expect that shit to pay off like that, but you know what? It fucking did. It is a crime against humanity that Mad Max Fury Road did not get a fucking Oscar or 12 for good directing, good acting, good cinematography, good writing. I don't give a fuck. The score was good, dude. That's really nice. Everything about this film was superb.
Yeah, I would say the story was probably the least complex element, but that really allowed them to, George Miller and company, it really allowed them to bring a lot of complexity to all the other parts and yet keep the story simple and easy to follow.
Absolutely. It's a very simple story, but you don't always need a complicated story to have a good story, a moving and evocative story. Fury Road is just so fucking good. Ugh.
Yeah, I am not particularly happy with many films in the 2000 and post era.
Yep.
Boy, I find a lot of them just to be lacking and not particularly memorable. But Fury Road was definitely one of the exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, I can confirm he says this shit all the time.
Yep. Along with the new Godzilla. Holy
fucking
smoke.
-1. Nobody's going to come to a fucking small budget YouTuber like us to hear it, but I'll also just throw my voice on the pile of us and 10 billion other fucking people, apparently, that Godzilla -1 was a cinematic fucking masterpiece.
Absolutely. It was probably my favorite film I saw in theaters, and I haven't bothered to go to too many over the last couple of decades. But yeah, it was probably my favorite film to see in theaters since Mad Max Fury Road.
So, okay. Fury Road, again, number one, probably my absolute favorite out of them. Number two would be The Road Warrior. I think those are the only two on my list that are switched from your list. It's not necessarily that Road Warrior was a lesser picture or anything along those lines. It just boils down again to what I was saying earlier. The pacing is just much more up my alley for Fury Road than for Road Warrior. Now, don't get me wrong. Lots of Road Warrior is great. I fucking love the Boomerang Kid. That shit's awesome. The main
Feral Kid.
Feral Kid. I always call him Boomerang Kid because, I mean, the feral Boomerang Kid. You're going to know who I'm talking about. But, I love him. I really enjoy just the look of the main bad guy with that big fucking mask. And
humongous.
He's beautiful. I love him. He's great. That was the first time, in the series that it really felt like there was a real wasteland. The first movie, it wasn't a wasteland. Like we said, it was the fall of society. However, we get to actually see that wasteland. We get to see fucking Mad Max eating Dinky D goddamn dog chow. The third film, there's definitely a lot of struggle as well, but Master Blaster has it pretty nice. Anyway, comparatively speaking, I don't think anybody...
Anti-Entity has it pretty nice.
Yeah.
Comparatively.
Exactly. And like fucking Immortan Joe, in the fourth one, he has it pretty good. Same with the fucking main dude of the Bullet Farm and the main dude was it Gastown in the... Yeah. Road Warrior is probably my second favorite one. God damn it, I'm doing it again. I'm calling it the Underdome. Thunderdome, Beyond Thunderdome is probably my third favorite movie, just because there's like the least amount of car action in that one. Especially compared to Road Warrior and Fury Road, there's just a lot less car action, and specifically, they're riding a fucking train out on the end. It doesn't feel wrong, per se. It just feels a little like the stakes of a car chase are higher than it was for the train, because, it's really fucking hard to tip a train over. And so, just the stakes of having to pilot the vehicle and steer at high speeds and stuff versus the other train that, it just didn't feel like the stakes were quite as high for that specifically. But, that's neither here nor there. I thought the kids were fun. They were interesting. It expanded the world a little bit. But I will say that it was... just like, great, a bunch of kids survived in the desert by themselves. That feels a little odd, given all the carnage and bloodshed and shit that happens elsewhere. They managed to just live in this secluded little valley with a bunch of water. Like, wow, lucky them. That just doesn't seem to make too much sense to me, but I'm absolutely willing to just set that to the side because I fucking love it. Mad Max is great.
The adults basically set things up for the kids, and then the adults left.
They did, but I'm saying, like, in this time that they've been gone, there hasn't been, like, yes, they do have some weaponry. Yes, they're able to defend themselves some, but, like, that looks like a very defensible position. And you're telling me that nobody out there in Bartertown or in any of the other settlements that I'm sure that there are there, they don't mention them per se, but I'm certain they have to be there at least. Nobody else went in and fucking just, like, I don't know, not saying that I want the kids to be enslaved, but, like, come on, this is the fucking post-apocalypse we're living in here, right? So, again, it doesn't ruin the movie for me whatsoever, and I didn't even think about that until, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 watches into the film, so it's obviously not something that's going to screw me over, and it's still a Mad Max film, so I'm going to love it, but, that's just why it goes lower than Road Warrior for me. And then lastly, of course, there is the first Mad Max film. It's just a decent movie. Not great. It's, low budget. It was George Miller's first fucking film, to my knowledge. And, for paying your actors and crew with fucking beer, he did real good. Plus, it went on to fucking spawn 3 of the other Mad Max movies, plus Furiosa coming up. So I cannot fucking complain whatsoever about Mad Max. It's a solid fucking B- in my opinion.
Yeah, I would... I would probably, rank it somewhere in the B-, and I'd probably give the rest A's.
Who is your favorite character in the entire franchise? Any one of the movies. The only stipulation is if you say that it's Max, you at least got to give me a number 2 because, I mean, come on, like everyone's favorite character is going to be Max, so we got to flavor it up a little bit. We got to put some spice in it. So, who is your favorite character?
It would indeed be Max. I don't know. He's just a character that I have identified with in a lot of different ways throughout the course of my life. So yeah, it would obviously be him. Gosh, who would be a number 2? I would almost have a hard time picking that. Toe Cutter in the first one is pretty fun, as is Goose. Even the captain's pretty fun. I can't think of the captain's name.
Yeah, I don't know. Thinking back about Goose is from the first one specifically, maybe my favorite. Just that one part where that's just. That was a completely useless part. Didn't have to be in the film, but my God, it wouldn't be Mad Max without it.
Part 2, Feral Kid is definitely one of the characters I really love. Humongous is great too, though, and of course, oh my gosh, why can't I think of his name? It's Vernon Wells. I can't believe I forgot his name. But anyway, gosh, the Gyro Captain from Road Warrior. I do think Jedediah from Thunderdome, even though it's played by the same actor and they're both pilots, I do think those are 2 different characters, probably. Gyro Captain would definitely be a favorite. On the other hand, as far as complete ensemble, I might actually pick Thunderdome. Just because it has so many fantastic characters. Anti-Entity is amazing. Master Blaster is awesome.
Very unique.
Iron Bar Macy is just fantastic. I just like Frank Thring, who plays the Collector in that movie. He looks so much like Hitchcock. And,
yeah, Frank Thring he's got a very memorable face.
Right. In fact, I loved it when he was cast as the director in Howling 3. I really think that had to have been a slight play on him looking like Hitchcock, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The Howling 3 is the kind of movie that I both want to remember forever and forget immediately. It is such an interesting movie.
Howling 3 is awesome.
Yes,
I love Howling 3 because it is so weird, but it too is an Australian film. I still didn't get, there's also Screw Loose and The Hunter Kid, and I don't know, I don't love Anna Goanna as much, but damn, I love her name. I even like Slake, and I'm kind of bummed that we only got to spend a short amount of time with him. Just that whole tribe of kids, that's part of one of the things I really like about that film is us actually getting to see 2 of the societies that have come from the changes and how drastically different those societies are. And
it does give a nice contrast.
Right, and yet also, well, Mad Max has a big effect on both societies for that film.
Very true. Very true.
So yeah, I mean, that might be my favorite overall cast. On the other hand, man, Fury Road is just beautiful. I love Nux. Furiosa is absolutely fantastic, and what a badass. Immortan Joe, damn, what a great villain. Rictus is great, though.
I was just about to bring up Rictus. He is just, I got a baby brother.
This series of film has some of the most memorable characters out of any film ever.
At least out of what we've seen.
Yeah. I mean, it really is hard for me to pick an actual number 2. I guess it would probably either be the Gyro Captain or Nux, I guess. Although I'd be really tempted to toss in Screw Loose or Anti-Entity also. I think the films are absolutely amazing for their casts on top of the stunts and the stories and all the other stuff.
God, you didn't really give me many characters to break down. You kind of, man, you got almost the entirety of the cast of just about everyone. I mean, pretty close at least.
Didn't mention Max's wife.
Okay, you didn't mention Max's wife or his kid. And there is one other important character that you did not mention that is very important. Fucking dog meat, man.
Dog meat, yep.
Yeah,
yep.
dude, I mean, it's the pooch, so of course it's going to be up high on just about everybody's list for some of the favorites. And at a Road Warrior, he might actually be my second favorite. Specifically, just because, I mean, like, he's dog meat, man. I fucking love him. Feral Kid, he's great. Humongous, he's great. Fucking what's his face with the crossbow, he's great. But it's fucking dog meat, man. As a number 2 for the entire series, however, the Gyro Captain is a very good selection. I guess we didn't mention Furiosa a few minutes ago when we were going through the big list, although we have mentioned her a lot, towards the beginning of the video.
I thought I did mention her briefly. I did mention her briefly, but God, there's so many good characters to get to in this series.
Well, then thank God for the magic of editing.
I mean, damn, I don't know. In addition to, I don't know, Feral Kid would probably have to go up almost evenly matched with Gyro Captain.
I really do like Blaster specifically. Master's an interesting character, but Blaster himself is just way more fun to be with on screen, in my opinion. I mean, not that I was ever fucking in the room with the guy. God, I really like all of the maidens from the Fury Road. Each of them was a very unique character. Very, none of them blended into each other. A lot of times when there is a group of characters like that, it's very easy for them to just get mistaken for one, or not necessarily mistaken for one another. They're just could
get lost in the crowd.
Exactly. Yeah. They're just replaceable. They could be any face, but that doesn't feel like that's the case with the maidens. And specifically, I think my favorite is, oh God, which one? I did particularly like Splendid. I mean, she was, I think, the strongest character out of each of them. Regardless, they are all very good characters, all pretty strong in my opinion. I just liked her the most, specifically because George Miller had the fucking balls to kill her. That was, man, Jesus Christ. I didn't expect that. She went under the wheels, man. I didn't expect it. Nobody did. Nobody fucking did. I remember when we were in the fucking...
Well, I mean, you have that moment where it's like, oh, is she going to get it? Oh, no, she didn't get it. Oh, she got it.
And then, they fucking pulled the rug out from under you. And that's the thing, dude. I remember being in the movie theater when that ended up happening, and it was just gasps for as far as the ear could hear, man. It was great.
Yeah, the audience really was reacting in that moment. That's true.
Man, it was just brilliant. And that's why theater-going experiences are the exceptional best way to be able to watch movies, in my opinion, is because you got the full crowd there. You're feeding off of each other's energy, man. It's fucking great. I don't like watching movies by myself because, I would much rather just go read a book by myself. That's just my way to go about it. But when it comes to films, the more people, the merrier. Unless you got like those assholes in the crowd, that's different. But generally speaking, the more the merrier. Okay, so let me go ahead and try and finally answer your fucking question because I am just rambling all over the place. My very favorite character overall, I probably would agree with you, Max, because who the fuck would disagree? I'm sure people are out there that will disagree, and hey, to each their own, different strokes for different folks and whatnot.
Damn Skippy.
Overall, I think that I would say that Nux is my favorite secondary character from all of the films, and that's because, in my opinion, it seems to me like he actually might have the largest overall arc of any character in the entire franchise. Max, let's face it, does he have an arc? Yes, but his arc is almost always, I don't want to do that. All right, fine, I'll do that.
Pretty much.
Yeah, fucking story of my life, story of everyone's life. But when it comes to Furiosa, she doesn't really have much of an arc. She is, it's pretty much, she just wants to get the ladies to safety and try and redeem herself. That's her story. But there's not much of an arc there. She doesn't change as a character as she goes through the movie. She starts the movie as Furiosa, and she ends the movie as Furiosa, right? Whatever arc she had came beforehand, right? Which is probably going to be explored in Furiosa, right? The upcoming movie.
Right.
But, going back to Nux, I don't think anybody has ever had that far of a character arc in any of the franchise, except for him. He goes from a full-on, he is a war boy. His entire life, his entire identity is centered around being a war boy and fighting and driving on behalf of Immortan Joe so that he can get to Valhalla and shit like that, right? Well, he completely flips that around. He literally sacrifices himself to save the people that he was trying to hunt down by the end of the movie. That is a complete 180 reversal.
And to stop Immortan Joe's cult.
Yes. Yeah, he literally was instrumental. It could not have happened without Nux.
Yep.
So, in my opinion, he's probably my favorite, my favorite character aside from Max would probably be Nux. For those reasons. And lastly, for the ensemble question, that's going to go to Fury Road because just everybody works so well together. All of the wives. Tom Hardy playing Max. Charlize Theron was great. Nux was fantastic, plus all of the other war boys. All of those fucking weird, why the fuck were the Russians in Australia? I don't know, but I loved it as an addition. It was great. So... that's just Fury Road all the way. It's 11 out of 10. Perfect movie. Don't even try to match it because you'll never... Okay, we should try and match it. It probably will be surpassed at some point, but I don't have any real confidence that that's going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I think we'd have to go a long time before Road Warrior or Fury Road was even knocked off of my top 20.
Yeah, there'd have to be a lot of good movies to come out.
Yeah.
What about, if you found yourself living in the world of Mad Max, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe George Miller has established that each of the movies does take place in chronological order, with the exception of Furiosa now.
Yeah, Furiosa will be the first time the order is changed. Yeah, from my understanding, Fury Road was meant to be the final Mad Max with Mel Gibson, and one of the only real changes to the film is had Mel played Max, he would have ridden the cart up with Furiosa at the end. You would have seen Max's story come full circle, basically.
Yeah, he finally has a home again.
Yeah. But otherwise, yes, generally chronological order, and as I think we did mention earlier on, or you mentioned specifically, the Mad Max is basically the last gasps of civilization trying to hang on. Road Warrior is pretty much once the collapse is well underway.
Yeah, it's in full swing.
Yeah, there's only tiny pockets of society left at that point. Thunderdome actually does take place, from what I understand, canon-wise. Nuclear war has occurred between the events of Road Warrior and Thunderdome. But on the other hand, Thunderdome, we are beginning to see the starts of new societies. And then, in Fury Road, I think we're sort of seeing some of the main problems with starting societies, which is pathological people tend to seize power. And power does tend to corrupt.
As is very well exemplified by Immortan Joe and the Gastown guys and so on and so forth. Which of those four eras would you... which of those four eras do you think you would have the best chance of survival in? And I guess B, which will probably be the same answer, but it very well might not. Which one do you think you could survive in?
Oh boy, I guess I think, in my opinion, Thunderdome might be kind of the sweet spot. although Fury Road might be as well. What kind of society are we going to try to establish and maintain? I would actually love to have been a part of that, and still have the memory of what went wrong.
To try and avoid those mistakes again,
Yeah. So I kind of think the Thunderdome era is the era I would have probably most preferred to have been in. Boy, as far as easiest to survive, I guess again, probably the Thunderdome era. Probably, although Fury Road era would be somewhat similar, but a lot of the psychopaths would have seized any power structure at that point. So I do actually think that era would be more dangerous than the Thunderdome era. On the other hand, with each of those, you're kind of getting farther and farther away from the really traumatic apocalyptic events. So I think I would pick either of the last two films. There's probably less struggle in your future than there was in your past. So, plus you could hopefully be applying some of the things you learned through your struggles and through the struggles of others to ensure that those eventualities don't occur again in society later down the road.
I think I would, at least for me, right? I definitely think that I would have the highest chance of legitimate survival had I found myself alive during the events of the first movie. Because, it definitely looked, it makes it pretty clear that everybody knows that shit's going downhill. So at that point in time, theoretically, I might have enough time to start preparing myself for the eventualities. Say, for instance, stocking up on ammunition, stocking up on food and water, stocking up on gasoline, and so on and so forth. Not that I'm a fucking...
Extra toothbrushes.
Yeah, no shit, right? Make sure you got your toilet paper and whatnot. I'm not a gun-toting individual myself, on the daily, but I would say if I found myself in that situation, I would probably start thinking otherwise. I'd start probably trying to arm myself to be able to protect my family and whatnot. At least I fucking hope I would. I'd be a douchebag if I didn't.
Create a whole damn armory, yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. So I think that I would probably have the highest chances of survival because that's the case. And also, if I found myself in any of the other three movies, that means I probably would have been born past the era of vaccines. So I more than likely would have just died because I would have died of some kind of disease that I don't know, fucking dysentery or whatever, right? Assuming that we're talking about going in at the ages that we are right now, you could probably walk into just about any of them and, not have to worry about that section at least.
Right.
But not for me, man. Like, I'm willing to bet the mortality rate jumped straight back to what it was in, like, fucking 1403 or whatever.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, exactly. So,
as we see, a lot of the kids don't survive past childhood.
Right. And
which drastically lowers the average lifespan. Right?
Exactly. Hey, that's how them averages and them maths work. It's great. I fucking love it. Anyway, so I think that not only do I think I'd have my greatest chances of survival there, but I would also want to have been there because, again, I think I would have just died otherwise. I don't think I would have stood a chance, or at least my chances would have been dropped by like fucking 70% if I was born in any of the periods of the other movies.
So we've also talked a little bit, not a whole lot, but we've talked a little bit about like Mad Max ripoffs and stuff before. And not only in movies, but in video games or even literature and things like that.
I'm definitely not too familiar with many ripoffs myself, but I could definitely think of a number of things that either tip the hat and wink towards Mad Max or inspired very much by Mad Max. I could think of a number of those, but when it comes to direct ripoffs, there's not really many that I know. Fucking what do you know, like, any actual hard ripoffs?
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, there's there's a number of films. 1990 Texas Gladiators, 2019 After the Fall of New York. A lot of those are, maybe not direct ripoffs. They're just heavily inspired by. But I mean, also there'd be like Hell Comes to Frogtown. Probably two of my favorites that I do think were heavily inspired by would definitely be Six String Samurai.
Fuck yes.
Yes. And Tank Girl.
Also, fuck yes. Those definitely have... They feel like those are, like, in my opinion, like homages. Because, of course, I've seen Tank Girl. I've seen, a couple of those things. And I don't know if I would actually call those a rip. Because, yes, they're very post-apocalyptic. And, yeah, they have a lot of the same kind of...
sensibilities.
Yeah, right. Tank Girl is obviously a lot more tongue-in-cheek with its presentation. It is always very nice to stumble across Mad Max shit in any kind of media that I end up finding. I remember, the first time I played Borderlands, I don't remember how old I was. I was pretty young, a young teenager at least. There's a boss, maybe an hour or an hour and a half into the game, at fucking Mad Mel. And yeah, he's just in a car, and he's in this little fucking arena, and you have to get in a car, and you have to go fucking shoot him and shit. And it was a pain in the ass. It was probably one of my least favorite bosses in the game to actually play against, but he will always stay in my mind because it's just Mad Max reference. And then, of course, like fucking Fallout. I don't think the Fallout franchise would... I don't think it would have quite the aesthetic that it has. It would definitely... I mean, hell, actually, I'll be totally honest. I'm not 100% sure it even exists. Especially the first one, yes. I've expressed that sentiment a number of times. Number 1 and number 2 both have, the same exact graphics with a few exceptions. And, there's a number of Mad Max references directly in both of those games. Yeah, it's really fun to always see those little winks and nods to those things. Because, I grew up watching Mad Max because, I grew up with you, so of course I watched Mad Max, and it's just a little tickle for the old nostalgia. I appreciate it.
Two other films that were definitely heavily inspired by. I don't love this first one so much. I don't think the full film kind of coheses as well as it could, but Doomsday by is it Neil Jordan, I think?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. Give me 2 seconds.
Same guy who did Dogs. Neil Marshall. Same guy who did Dog Soldiers.
Dog Soldiers was fun.
Yeah, Dog Soldiers was great. Although that was kind of aliens with werewolves. But that was fine because, damn, it was awesome. I did want to say, boy, I think my actual overall favorite Tarantino movie happens to be Death Proof. Now, I find the first hour of that pretty boring. But the last 20 minutes, I do think, are very Mad Max inspired.
Yeah, with the fucking lady on the top of that hood, dude. That is an intense fucking 20-minute scene. That is just maybe the best 20 minutes that Tarantino ever put to film.
I mean, that's definitely my personal opinion. I guess one final addendum, although you can't really call it a ripoff because it came out before any of the Mad Max movies. Similar themes and elements, I would definitely check out Death Race 2000. It's a lot more tongue-in-cheek. It doesn't take itself nearly as seriously as those films, and the aesthetics are different enough that they're different movies.
Oh, they are very different films, but they do tackle at least somewhat similar ideas at points in time. Mostly just the vehicular violence. That's the major theme that they share in common. But they do have a handful of others.
And a sort of a post-apocalyptic future that... boy, Mad Max might be 20 years after Death Race.
You have to notice that Frankenstein in Death Race 2000, his garb, his clothing, his costume is very similar to what Max looks like, especially in Road Warrior going forward, but even starting in the first movie. I mean, just look at the fucking cover art of how he looks. I think it's in this one right here. Just look at fucking how he ends up looking. And you compare that to how Frankenstein looks in Death Race 2000, and man, if those movies came out farther apart in time from each other, they were fairly near to each other, right?
I think Death Race was 76 and Mad Max was 79.
So yeah, Death Race was 1975, and Mad Max, the first one, was 1979.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a little bit off. Okay, so there is a decent chance, actually. I thought they were closer together than this. But seeing that they came out so close together, there's a chance that George Miller might have seen Frankenstein, the character, in Death Race 2000, and taken a note on his wardrobe.
Yeah. Agreed. They're both somewhat post-apocalyptic. They're both kind of about the problems that society faces while it's crumbling. Mm-hmm. And under bad leadership, there's definitely racing and car crashes in both.
Plenty.
There are gangs to deal with in both. So, yeah, a lot of the same themes and elements that somehow make two almost entirely different films. But, with a little asterisk by it, Death Race would actually be my favorite Mad Max ripoff.
And surprise, we're going to sell you shit. So, hi, my name's Damian, by the way. I'm Dictator Foreman, and I write books. That's what I do for a living. This book right here, this is The Circus, an American fantasy. This is my scary book, and it's my baby. It's real mean and real nasty, and there's lots of violent things that happen. It is one fuck of a novel. I felt very uncomfortable writing a few passages in this, a number of passages, actually. I can think of at least 3 or 4 points in time that I just actively start sweating when people are like, oh, tell me about some of the things that you wrote. Okay, we're also going to mention Portraits in Bloodlines. This book right here is 23 short stories. I wrote half of them. My father wrote the other half of them. We got a real good collection for you right here.
Definitely some dystopian fiction in here as well. One of my own novels here is entitled Hacked Off. Kind of have a Texas Chainsaw Massacre style family living out in the woods. The real problem with that is the youngest member of the family doesn't want to be killing all the pretty girls who's coming into the woods. He wants to get to know them better. This is my Jaws spoof, Grizzled. There's a small group of forest rangers and hunters who have to deal with a giant mutant penguin attacking the forest areas around a small tourist town.
Out of all of the material that he's written, this one's probably my favorite, because this shit's fucking hilarious.
Finally, we also have Grind Forest, which is basically both of these novels altered just slightly so they take place in the same forest on the same day. It's just goofy fun, and if you buy this version, it's about $2 cheaper than paying for both of the books, and yet you get a little bit extra.
Thank you very much for coming in and watching my video. I would greatly appreciate it if you went out and if you bought my book, The Circus, an American Fantasy, or Portraits in Bloodlines with Rycke Foreman here, or any of his 3 books, Grizzled, Hacked Off, or Grind Forest. Yeah, we would love it if you liked and subscribed, but really, we would like to see people read more often. Reading is a very important thing. It's good for your brain. It's good to, for everybody in general. It's good for society. Just go read more books. Do you have any final closing statements, Mr. Foreman, sir?
If you haven't got the point, man, I love the Mad Max films. Yeah, I just absolutely love them. I love the way most other people love them. So if you never have given them a try, you might want to check them out.
If they're not up your alley, I'm certain that you could at least appreciate the cinematography and the characters and the writing and stuff. Even if it's not your kind of cup of tea, I think you can at least still find some value in it. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited to go watch Furiosa when it comes out. I'm sure you're going to as well. And fucking until then, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Just remember, we don't need another hero.
Mayday, mayday, we're going down.
Yeah, this is going to be the second video in a row now that we've mentioned Tank Girl, Gabrielle. Can't even say my wife's name right. Yeah, Gabrielle and I talked about that.
Fallout.
Oh, yes. I'm going down under. It's affecting my speech and vocabulary. But I don't know what the fuck I said any of that. Howdy.
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 Beware of Captain Howdy. Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. God, am I Australian all of a sudden using the fucking international name?